If you are passionate about architecture, sincerely passionate about it, you can overcome some of the challenges in both your early career and middle of your career.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are enjoying the show and get some great value for your investing goals, make sure you let us hear about it through an honest rating and review. It helps us and it helps other listeners find this show to reach their investing goals as well. And listen, if you haven't done so, or this is your first time listening, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, we've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Otis Odell. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Now, for 30 plus years, Otis has been shaping the real estate market in the U.S. with groundbreaking people-first development ideas across high-rise and affordable housing sectors. He's currently pushing the boundaries of architecture as the national housing sector leader at HED, one of America's largest integrated architecture engineering firms, valued at over $100 million. Now, since 1908, HED has been a leader in innovation and consistently ranks on awards lists. Let's welcome to the show, Otis Odell.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here.
Absolutely, Otis. Great to have you here. I went over your bio at a very, very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Okay, I'll do that. So I have been with HED as a principal for about 10 years. Before that, I actually had my own practice in Denver, Colorado, where after being on a partner track at a large Denver firm, I decided to quit and hang out my own shingle. So I did that and had a great run for 16 years, relatively small firm, 15, 16 people. And we were clobbered, if you will, in the 2008 downturn, primarily because I'm a housing guy. I've been in housing my entire career. I love housing, and my little 16-person company dropped to about 8. So I was very fortunate in that I was able to sell that company to one of my employees and move to California for about 12 years, and I found HED. And I've come full circle where I've worked for a large firm, then worked for myself, and now back at a large firm, which is a great story in itself. But I love what I'm able to do right now because I'm in a position where I love what I get to do, which is really a seller doer model. And I have all the infrastructure behind me. So that's refreshing after really being in the grind of running your own company for 16 years. I love multifamily housing and so much in everything that it offers.
Otis, I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned, starting out, you work for a large firm, kind of decided, even though you're on the partner track, you wanted to drop that and do your own thing. Did that. 2008 happens. You end up selling that business. And then after some time, you go back to a large firm. For many listeners, it's given kind of the similarities between where the market is today and maybe where it was back then. I know a lot of conversations I'm having with people, there tends to be, you know, I guess some angst in where the economy is and just what they should be doing professionally. And I'm talking to a lot of people who are ready to leave their jobs and do something differently. What lessons or insights would you share from kind of launching your own firm and kind of doing that independently to working at a big firm since you've kind of been on both sides of that aisle?
Well, I think there's certainly benefits to both. I didn't go off and start my own firm until I was at that age where I really had to give it a try. Yet I had a significant amount of experience behind me. So it wasn't until I was in my late 30s that I made that decision. And I do see people starting their own organizations much earlier, and I just have to wonder what experience are they going to be able to leverage to make that a success. So I do wonder about that. I found myself, uh, benefiting from both working in a small firm in my early career because there you really have to do everything. You are requested to get involved in every aspect of the business because it's small and they need you to be engaged. In the larger firm in your earlier career, you have to be cautious because you don't necessarily want to be sort of pigeonholed, if you will, in a single task. So I think it is important to make sure that you get a breadth of experience. I would say that it is important to be passionate about anything that you do. And if you are passionate about architecture, sincerely passionate about it, you can overcome some of the challenges in both your early career and middle of your career. So I think that you'll find, unfortunately, that as a young architect or a young practitioner, your pay scale is not as handsome as it could be if you went in a different direction. So the idea that you are really committed and passionate about architecture is important, as it is in anything, frankly.
I appreciate you sharing that, right? Because so many people, I think, are eager to do something different, and it helps just to get a glimpse of what the other side of that fence looks like. And there are pros and cons. There are always pros and cons to doing your own thing. I think the thing that stood out from what you said, though, is it helps to be able to look back at the different experiences you've had working at a small firm, working at a large firm. That gives you a really good sense of, hey, small firm probably allowed you to do a bunch of everything, right? But really, yes, you had a job title responsibilities, but at a small firm, everybody's got to chip in and do what they got to do. At a larger firm, you get more structure, you get more standard operating procedures, you get some best practices, you have resources. So if you can combine those experiences, that puts you in a little bit of a better position to go out and do your own thing. So I appreciate you sharing that. Let's talk about what you're working on today, right? We talk about being the national sector leader. I know you're doing a lot of development. You talked about multifamily. Can you give our listeners a little bit more context as far as what you actually do in your role?
So my role is multifaceted. I, in my current role as business leader for the national practice, I am very involved in strategy, and we do an annual business plan exercise. We are in the middle of that right now. We bring in the sector leaders and our strategy and business development leaders, and we actually put together a very detailed business plan. Each sector in our organization does the same, and then that becomes the basis for how we respond to the firm's strategic plan, how we develop our budgets internally for what kinds of events and organizations we belong to, that sort of thing. The year 2024 has been challenging for the housing and mixed use sector, and we have not done as well as we would have liked to in our sales. Um, Access to capital has been challenging. Interest rate environment has been challenging. In an election year, we have seen a lot of hesitation or putting this on hold or waiting for less uncertainty, if you will. My expectation, and from what I read and experience in the marketplace, is that that is starting to change. And what we see is, as a strategy person, I'll talk about that a little bit. And then as a practitioner, what I really love to be a part of. From the strategy standpoint, we have been talking to our clients and prospective clients. And while there have been a lot of multifamily deliveries in the fourth quarter of 2024, that work was work that was started 2, 3, sometimes 4 years ago. And now all this product is coming online. So it's a question of absorption. And I think that it will get absorbed. What you also understand about this last year or so is that multifamily starts are way down. So just simple logic and math and the understanding of the business cycle and the housing cycle, our developers are recognizing that there's going to be a supply issue in late 2026 and 27. So we are starting to see some starts. Multifamily developers are thinking about the fact that there's going to be a supply issue in a couple of years, and they are preparing to get started on projects. So in the last year and a half, we have been blessed with some good work. We found during the last 3 or 4 years the challenge with construction costs, and that's still with us. And the contracting community is generally very challenged. They have an issue where 7 or 8 people leave the profession, they retire, whatever, and only one is coming back. So costs are high for construction, and it's driven the development community to focus on type 5 construction, which is a simpler construction type. It's wood framed, oftentimes slab on grade. Some people might know it as 3-story walk up, no elevator, stairs to get you to your, home, your units. And it can be put together for a lesser cost. We do high rise construction, we do high end market rate product. We do affordable that is financed through low income housing tax credits. We do student, we do senior housing. And we're starting to see an uptick in the senior market. For the last couple of years, we have been doing a lot of affordable housing. Our team, including myself, brings a lot of experience in working in the affordable housing space. And it's very active in our California market and, frankly, in our Chicago market. So I serve as principal in charge on several projects. So I stay connected. We have our team meetings virtually. We have construction meetings virtually. It makes it very easy for us to connect without a lot of travel. So I understand what's happening in our projects, and I just love being hands-on. I love being hands-on at the beginning of a project where we can make sure that the program and the design direction is on the right track, that the client's expectations are being met. This is as a principal in charge and as a practitioner. And then I stay involved all the way through. And my main role is to remove roadblocks from the team, make sure the team has a clear path, has a clear understanding of what they're putting together. We're looking for ways to improve our efficiency and making sure that our product, which is a set of documents, is of high quality and that the contracting community has what they need to be able to build the project.
Yeah, let me play back a couple things I heard you say, right? So one is just understanding where we sit in the market. 2024, lots of challenges between interest rate costs. It's an election year, lots of uncertainty. So you had more hesitation from developers. That is starting to loosen up. You're starting to see a little bit more traction now. And I think it's important to note for the listeners when you're talking about multifamily starts, 2023 and 2024 were back to back years of the most deliveries of multifamily housing than we've seen in over 40 years. However, many of those projects were began 2, 3, 4 years ago. So you've seen it all come online now, but really not much at all has been begun in the last year or so. So we're right back to kind of a drought. I think it's like a 70 or 80% drop off, going into 25, 26. So you're saying there's going to be another demand needed going into 2026 and 2027. So that's what we're starting to see is kind of a wild swing of development starts and development stops there. For many of our listeners, we're looking to figure out where there's opportunity. Many folks are investing in multifamily. And one of the opportunities that I think people are really excited about is buying properties from developers, right? Low maintenance, right? It's just brand new property, lots of value there. Especially if you're leasing the project up, or you're just coming on and just going to manage that asset there. When you are looking at the development, you start talking about type five and some of the different things that, again, maybe the novice investor has no clue what you're talking about. What should we be looking at, right? If I'm looking to buy a new project or looking to invest in a new project, talk to us a little bit more about types of construction and what kind of things we should be paying attention to.
Right. So if you're in a position to purchase a multifamily project, generally what you want to have happen is that the developer who has brought this product to fruition has it stabilized and has seen it get occupied, that it has a good track record. Look at the social media that you'll see from the tenant population and the resident population. Understand what they like and perhaps what they don't like. So you understand what you're getting into, right? Certainly, you want to be looking at location. And it's so interesting to track location. It has really changed a number of times. Pre pandemic, it was one thing, and then people moved away and they were going to more remote locations where they kind of wanted to be for whatever reason. It was less expensive, they were closer to family, and there might be in a more of a tertiary market. So you wonder when that tenant base decides to move on to their next thing, how is it going to be to release, to lease it back up again and to keep that lease rate up where you want it to be. Property management is critical. Some developers bring their own property management to the table, others go out of house. I'm not really an expert on all of the various property management companies. There are many of them. If there is a property management company in the project that you're thinking about purchasing, check them, check their reputation, check their ability to make this property one that tenants appreciate. Nothing better than having some responsiveness when there's an issue, right? A tenant wants responsiveness. And conversely, if they don't get it, it's going to be hard to get them to release. When we talk about multifamily design with our clients, we talk about how to get the property leased, and then we talk about what keeps that tenant coming back. So, what is the amenity package? What is there either within the property or within the district or neighborhood or community that you're in, so that you know you've got access to amenities? Whether you're in a tertiary market or a primary market, an urban setting or a suburban setting, or even a more rural setting, what's around you that you can use to promote to the tenant base the advantages of being there. So we talk about different project types, building types. High rise is the most complicated from a building code standpoint. It's non combustible. It has a lot of construction um, systems that are unique for that product type. Typically, of course, because of its expense, it's a much more luxury product. Obviously, it's in a more urban district. We see a lot of type 3 construction, which has a certain fire rating and allows you to go to a certain height. You can go up to 85 feet in a type 3, and in type 5 is generally wood, and it's wood framed, and it's a different subcontractor type, right? So you're really relying on that framer, the wood people that are out there, and you can only go 60 feet with that product type. Again, developers have been drawn to that type of building because of its lower cost. It pencils more readily and, you know, creates a nice offering to the tenant base because it can be delivered for less rent at the end of the day. So, rent structures, if you're a buyer, you want to be looking at the rent rolls and seeing what the rents are and how it's performed over time. And I think that in a type 5, sometimes you'll have more issues with quality. So you really want to look carefully and make sure that it's been well constructed. You can build the very well constructed building with type 5 construction, yet sometimes those particular subcontractors may be a little bit less um, concerned, or they're not paying as much attention to the fine print or the detail. um, so it's important to sort of look at that and see what you can find in the documentation for the building. So what we do as architects, as our closeout effort, we provide all the warranties, all the manuals for all the equipment, and make sure that that's bundled up and that it's given to the developer. And so ask to see that. Ask to see those records if you're a buyer, to understand some of the history and some of the story behind the project. Um, Residents and tenants are for experience, looking for experiences. One might argue that, hey, it's a roof. I just need a roof over my head. And it depends on the demographic that's being served. Understand as a buyer what demographic appeals to you. Is it the more budget minded? Is it the luxury? Is it somewhere in between? Is it missing middle? Is it middle market? So understand that, and understand what that demographic might bring in terms of opportunities and challenges.
Well, there's great information. You talked about understanding what the demographic is looking for, what challenges. Obviously, high rise, that's going to be more luxury in these urban core locations versus more of that type five, which is more of your traditional new apartment building settings, which is wood framed. And you said one thing to look for if you're looking to invest in these, make sure you're asking about those records and warranties. See the paperwork, see what's there, see what exists, have a better sense of what the project is and where it's at. And check into just the reputation, the property management, what do residents say, what's the all-out reputation. Make sure you understand kind of what you're getting yourself into. You talked also about, your senior housing, there's affordable housing, there's a lot of different things that are out there. What are some of the things you look at when you approach these different projects to say, okay, if it's senior housing, here's something we have to make sure we're paying attention to, versus if it's affordable housing, here's something that's critical that we got to make sure we pay attention to.
Great question. So, regardless of what type of housing you're considering to invest in, understand that you can't do housing without doing community at some level. It's a very integral part of community. So we look for, in a missing middle sort of market, we look for how we can bring a good quality product to a middle income America. That's the group of people that are really challenged perhaps the most, and they have certain expectations. If they're family oriented, what are we going to do to design a project that appeals to that particular demographic? It's got to have a sensitive price point. It's got to have family amenities. It's got to have, most every place now has to have something, some nook or cranny or room where you can work from home, because that is the new normal. And many companies are either hybrid or working from home. And so to make sure that your house, your apartment, your residence accommodates that, I think that, you know, the one of the best models, frankly, is student housing. The student housing model really works well for the development community. And that is because they're focused on top tier schools and universities, and they are renting by the bed instead of by the unit. And in those instances, we want to make sure that we're including amenities that are geared toward the student demographic. Student-focused retail, coffee shops, of course, coffee shops apply to every demographic at this day and age. So those are critical components. On the senior side, it's really important to create spaces where you are constantly able to interact with others. Loneliness can be a key issue for the senior community. So you want to have, circulation paths that create places where you can run into your neighbor. You want to create spaces that are places where residents can get together and do whatever kinds of programming they sort of migrate to, whether it's playing cards or working on your car. I mean, some of these projects have garages where you can bring a car and a group of men or women and women can work on a car, or woodworking or cooking classes, those kinds of things that are really important to seniors as they work less and have more time to start considering other hobbies and crafts and things that they like to be involved in. The project wants to make sure that it has those things for that demographic. Housing is about placemaking, and if you're serving students, if you're serving seniors, if you're serving, the middle market, you want to make sure that the the lifestyle, the amenity package, even the living unit is geared toward that demographic. I think, on the more top of market product, market rate apartments, those today are generally very highly amenitized. Pools, certainly fitness rooms, movie spaces, they're community spaces where you can gather and have get-togethers and parties and all that kind of thing, so that those amenity spaces become an extension of your home and create distinctive places where you can experience life at the level that you want to experience it. I mean, and how you fit in the community. If you're relying on amenities that are not within your building, I think that's really important to look at, right? Do I want to, even in a suburban environment, it still can be walkable to coffee. It can be walkable to performances. It can be walkable, and I think walk score, it has been pretty important. I'm not sure exactly where that's going, if there are folks who are more comfortable living a bit more remotely or a bit more on the outskirts. Uh, so just understand it and understand what is available for the demographic that you're serving.
Otis, you said something that really stood out to me, and I love the way you described it because I think it's applicable for all investors, right? Because what it really comes down to is when you're investing in housing, you're investing in community. And it's all about community spaces. And specifically, you said, okay, if you're talking about multifamily, you got to keep in mind the work from home aspect. So people are looking for areas where they can work from home, they can take calls, maybe a meeting space, maybe office space, but make sure the work from home components there. That could be as simple as, you know, renting one bedroom plus den as opposed to two bedrooms, right? Could be the same exact layout, but if you market it as a one bedroom with an office or one bedroom with a den, that may be more appealing to somebody who's looking to work from home. The other thing you talked about was just retail, and particularly on student housing where you want the coffee shops. They want to, get out there and be around other young people. They want to make sure that, they're living in a community where they have access to these things. And then the last example is the seniors. With seniors in particularly, they're looking for those interactions. They want those community spaces where they can see other people. They can get into some of the crafts or some of the hobbies that they enjoy doing. But it all comes back to community. And whether you're investing in a 200 unit apartment complex or even just your own duplex, it's interesting to think about how you can create community, how you can bring in amenities and really do some things that can help you stand out. So I love that visual. I think it's really important. because it does come down to experience, right? If I've got a 100-unit building and somebody down the street's got a 100-unit building, obviously we can compete on rents, but someone's going to be thinking about what kind of experience will they have. Even if they move in with me, can I retain them? Can I keep them there? And that's going to come down to the interactions they have with the team, what amenities we offer, and all of those different components. And it's really important to keep those things in mind and not just focus so much on rents. Rents are important, but the reason people are willing to pay that rent or to pay a premium or to stay at this community as opposed to moving is because of the experience that they have. And we got to make sure we keep that front and center. Appreciate you sharing that.
That's for sure. And I would say, even when you are working on affordable housing, it it has to hit a certain price point, and there are requirements from the funding sources and all that sort of thing. It doesn't mean that it is without something more than just a kitchen, a bedroom, and a living room. What are you doing to get people outside? We have an affordable housing project, one of my favorites. It's relatively small. We like, bigger projects because the effort to do a bigger project, or I should turn that around. The effort to do a smaller project is many times the exact same as to do a bigger project. We have a project that's in Southern California. It is an affordable housing with a capital A, so it's low income housing financed, low income housing tax credit financed. It is also 50% permanent supportive housing, which means that it serves chronically homeless. It is very likely that 50% of the residents' former home was the street, and it has a rooftop experience that is outstanding. I mean, you can stand up there. It's a 7-story building. It's only 42 units. It's on a very compact site, very much urban infill. And in Southern California, you get incentivized for being close to transit, all those sorts of things. It's perfect for density bonuses. So we put a 42-unit building on a relatively compact site and went up 7 stories, and the rooftop is phenomenal. It's such a great place to be, and you can capture views, and it's a great place to come together. There's views of downtown Los Angeles. So it is important that no matter which demographic you're serving, that you are understanding the community that you're in and how you can not only serve the demographic, but in many ways serve the community. So you're always looking for 1 + 1 = 3.
Otis, I love it. I appreciate that. If you want to learn more about Otis and connect with the HED Design team, you can go to hed.design. Right now, we're going to transition to our round of insights. All right, Otis, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Wow. I had a project, and this is when I had my own firm, that was in a resort community, and we had approval of most of the city council. And at the end of the day, it was denied because we were pursuing an aesthetic that was really exceptional and outside of the realm of the typical sort of Colorado mountain vernacular with beams and posts and timbers. And we lost that project because ultimately the council swayed and went against it. And it reminded me of how important it is to really talk to all the stakeholders and make sure that you're finding the right solution.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for our listeners.
I like, there's a couple of podcasts. I think, The Business of Architecture, I think, is one of the podcasts. Checking it out. I'm sorry, I can't quite pull it out. I think it's The Business of Architecture. Is a really good resource to learn about what architects do and what they bring to the table.
All right, give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Oh dear. I haven't gifted any books that I can think of. I am on the receiving end of some great reads. I read business books. I read leadership books. The titles escape me. I also, have to fit in a novel. Matt Haig is one of my favorite authors on the novel side. He's very inspirational. And then Simon Sinek I think it is also an author that I really have a lot of respect for.
Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
Quiet time in the morning. I get up and I make coffee, but before the coffee, I'm sitting quietly, just reflecting. And then my wife gets up and we enjoy coffee together for about 30 minutes before the day starts. And it's one of the best times of the day.
Give me your number one insight for effective, well, let me say that differently. Give me your number one insight for designing communities.
Make sure you engage community. Make sure you listen carefully to community. And then you have to balance that with what your client goals are.
I love it. You are out in Denver. Give us your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
In Denver, there are a few. What is my favorite? Is Tavernetta.
Mm.
Tavernetta is at Union Station, Italian fare, and you're lucky to be able to get in there because it is very popular, but it is outstanding fare.
All right. Sounds like a great option the next time we're out in Denver. Oh, this gives
Please.
a lot of great stuff. Really appreciate you sharing a little bit more about your background, going from a large firm, small firm, your own firm, back to a large firm, and just the insights that you've learned along the way. Talking to us about design and designing communities for residents, right? Understanding multifamily design, affordable housing, senior housing, student housing, and how important it is to keep that focus on community, those communal spaces, right? Whether it's retail and coffee shops or places to work from home, or even just places to run and to interact with other people. Make sure we keep that design element in mind is so key. And then also for those of us who are looking to buy these properties from developers, understanding the construction side of it, understanding what warranties are there, getting all the paperwork and recognizing the effort and what's how the property is being operated today, so we know what we're getting ourselves into. Really great information, really helpful for us to learn more about the construction side of the business. Again, for those who want to learn more, they can check out your website, hed.design, and you can check out Otis there. Otis, thanks again for coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you, and I hope you have a great day.